I don't like Andrew Tate, although I would platform him in 5 seconds. A friend of mine has done so well in publishing and defending children. Her name is Katie Faust. She's written, I think, now 3 books, 2 with her friend Stacey Manning, and now 1. It's the 3rd book she's written. She's a child's right advocate. And she and I had a discussion at one point about Andrew Tate and platforming him. Now, I would platform Andrew in 5 seconds. He wouldn't stay on the set because of the questions I would ask Andrew Tate. Beginning with, is Jesus Christ weak? Because Andrew Tate had said that Christians are weak because they allow themselves to be intimidated. So I would ask him, is Jesus Christ weak? I would also ask him, of course, about the abuse allegations that continue to mount. And yes, there are allegations, and yes, there are court cases, and yes, they are believable, and yes, there are photos, and yes, there are text exchanges. But he did come out and say that Christians are weak because they allow themselves to be intimidated and they allow themselves to be made fun of. Was Jesus Christ weak? I mean, after all, he was the suffering servant. That's weakness, right? Well, let's talk through this, including the 30 pieces of silver that Judas Iscariot sold Jesus to the religious authorities for. And it wasn't about money. I don't think it was about money with Judas. I mean, he loved money. That was one of his sin problems, one of his sin issues, one of his idols. But I think what he was really seeking was power. And this is what money has become in the United States. Money is power, and it's true globally. Right? It's not just the United States. But money is so powerful in the United States that people are using it in ways that are going to lead to destruction. For instance, the artificially high, insane profit margins of companies based upon working with our most vital, most dangerous geopolitical foe, the Chinese Communist Party. That's a stupid, short-sighted decision. And anytime China wants, they can pull the plug. So praise God that President Trump is finally trying to right-size this, albeit with 1 step forward and 2 step back. So my friend Zach Abraham, a chief investment officer at Bulwark Capital Management, he's been calling this out for decades, as he's been calling out the massive inflation, as he's been calling out the fraud of the Federal Reserve. And it doesn't win him any big friends in the financial world to do this, but he's a truth teller. So he will truthfully look at your portfolio if you're 5, 10, 15 years from retirement, and he will truthfully tell you if you're overexposed to risk in his mind, because risk management is his obsession, and he does that by actively managing every single portfolio which can reduce risk and volatility. He'll have this discussion for free with no obligation, and I guarantee at the end of that, you're going to have a different opinion about your retirement account. Go to knowyourriskradio.com. That's K-N-O-W, knowyourriskradio.com, or call them at 866-779-RISK. Bulwark Capital Management is an investment advisor representative at Trek Financial LLC and SEC registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 25-137. So was Jesus Christ weak for being the suffering servant? And if you don't know that phrase, it comes from the book of Isaiah. And this is a book, Isaiah 53, that has some of the most remarkable prophecies about Jesus Christ in history. And there's a ton of them, and Jesus has fulfilled nearly every single one of them. It was written long, long before Jesus Christ was born. In Isaiah chapter 53, verses 3 through 7, we read a prophecy that describes a servant despised, rejected, bearing the sorrows and sins of others, wounded for transgressions, and led like a lamb to slaughter. Jesus fulfilled every single one of these. He is rejected by many. That's John chapter 1, verse 11. Crucified for humanity's sin. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24. Silent before his accusers. Mark 15, verses 3 through 5. You can also reference Matthew 8:17, John 12:38, and Acts 8:32 through 33 for all of these things. Led like a lamb, indeed. When he entered Jerusalem, where he was going to go be crucified, he entered through the sheep's gate. Why? Because he was the lamb. He was the Passover lamb. So he's weak, right, Andrew Tate? This is weakness, right, Andrew Tate? In Psalm 22:1, verses 16, 18, we read about the cry of anguish and the crucifixion detail. It begins with, my God, why have you forsaken me? Does that sound familiar? It should, because that's what Jesus said on the cross. Jesus quoted that, 22:1, on the cross, according to Matthew 27, verse 46. His crucifixion included the piercing of hands and feet. That's Luke 24:39. And soldiers divided his clothes. John 19:23 through 24. Did that make Jesus weak? Because he was crying out to the Father, why have you forsaken me? Is that weakness, Andrew Tate? In Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10, we read of looking upon me whom they have pierced and mourning for him. Jesus was pierced with a spear, John 19:34. His death led to sorrow among his followers, later seen as a fulfillment of redemption. That's John chapter 19, verse 37. Was that weakness that he allowed himself to be pierced? In Isaiah 50, verse 6, we read about humiliation and beating. The servant gives his back to those who strike him, and his face to shame and spitting. That was fulfilled. Jesus was beaten. He was scourged. In all likelihood, he was beaten and scourged so badly that his ribs were showing through his back. Think of that. Matthew chapter 26, verse 67, chapter 27, verses 26 through 30. Verify this. Psalm 69, verse 21, gall and vinegar offered. The prophecy was the suffering one is given gall for food and vinegar to drink. Jesus was offered vinegar to drink while on the cross. John 19:29 through 30. Was it weakness? Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. The seed of the woman will bruise the serpent's head, but his heel will be bruised. Jesus, born of a woman, Galatians 4:4, defeated Satan through his death and resurrection. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14, though he suffered the so-called bruised heel in the process. In the book of Daniel, another messianic book and a prophetic book, this is chapter 9, verse 26. We read about the anointed one will be cut off and have nothing. When Jesus was crucified, seemingly ending his mission, it was part of the redemptive suffering, and as written about in Mark chapter 15, verse 37. And in Psalm 34:20, no bones will be broken. Jesus' bones were not broken, though they attempted to break his. They were tempted to break his bones, but they did not, unlike the thieves who were crucified with him. That's in John chapter 19, verses 32 through 36. So this is weakness, right? Andrew Tate at one time was sort of a fighter, an MMA type fighter. He's a guy who keeps himself in good physical condition. And one would assume that when he's not apparently beating up women, which appears to be most of the time, he can probably defend himself against men, maybe even be the aggressor against men. That is, again, when he's not apparently beating up women. Is it weakness that Andrew Tate doesn't walk around beating up every man he sees? Or is it discernment? Because even the devil has times where he shows restraint. Was it weakness that the God of the universe allowed this to happen? Was it weakness that Jesus knew every pain he would suffer, but he went through it anyway? Is that weakness? To allow yourself to be scourged and beaten and hung on a cross and people to attempt to humiliate you when you're doing it to save the souls of many? Is that weakness? Now, people like Andrew Tate are going to find out just how unweak Jesus is when he returns as king and judge. And every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. And I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm going to have my own challenges on Judgment Day, though I know I'm saved in the blood of Christ. I do want to see Andrew Tate's face when he realizes that these weak Christians are led by a king who's going to banish evil forever in a massive war that he's already won.